Jeremy Clarkson hits out at woke BBC drama. People will stop watching. Clarkson's farm star Jeremy Clarkson is not impressed with his former employer's drama output. Clarkson's farm star Jeremy Clarkson has expressed his annoyance that the BBC chose to produce another drama about a dreary Victorian woman from some god-awful Jane Austen book that I was forced to study at school, instead of adapting his friend Brian Cline's novel The Spider Covenant. Complaining they had produced as yet another period piece featuring a familiar formula, he groaned about the content of the show. Explaining a horse and carriage pulls up outside a grand house at the beginning, he observed nothing of any great importance happens for about 16 hours. Clearly not a fan of the genre, he described period dramas as typically boring productions in his The Sun column. This came after Jeremy described his friend and former colleague's book as a good read and suggested it would make an excellent mini-series on TV. It tells the story of sinister businessmen using money the Nazis squirreled away after World War II to fund a next-generation AI project which will put Hitler sympathizers in power around the world. The author worked with Jeremy on Top Gear, directing every single one of the studio segments. When Clarkson's tenure on that show ended, he moved with him to the Grand Tour. The presenter continued his rant, claiming the BBC have contradictions in their historical productions. He said they go to immense lengths to make sure the stitching on everyone's bonnet is correct for the time and that the swords are made from period metal. However, he criticized the casting for featuring people in wheelchairs and people with Mexican accents in 17th-century stories. He also fumed about discussions about global warming being included in period dramas. Despite his apparent dislike for the genre, he did have praise for one production, albeit a non-BBC one. He praised Heath Ledger's film A Knight's Tale as the exception that got round all of this, using it as an example of how period dramas could avoid the typical pitfalls he associates with BBC historical productions. Its 14th-century story is intentionally anachronistic, featuring modern pop culture references with a soundtrack featuring 1970s music. Ignoring the whimsical concept, he suggested A Knight's Tale managed to overcome the conventional problems that plague historical television and film productions. It was brilliant, mainly because behind all the period cleverness, there was a good story, which you're unlikely to get from a book that sends most readers into a deep sleep by page 4, he wrote.